Hello, everybody. Andrew Blake from thedigital-audio-manual.com. Today, I want to share with you a number of different tips to help you get the most out of using Cubase. Let's begin by talking about parts and events, and specifically the benefits of setting up shortcuts for your Edit Select options. First one on the list we're going to look at says Range to Next Event. If I click on this option, that selection I had made before I opened the menu looks like it disappeared. What's really happened is it has selected the little area in between these two events. That's actually considered a place to select something with these commands. If I return to this menu and I take the next option as range to the previous event, it actually put a little highlight at the very beginning of this event. I'm going to show you some better ways to work with this in a minute, but let's continue on and just see what it does. Turning to the menu, if I say enlarge the range to the next event, it selected this whole event until it got to the next one and stopped. Let me repeat that and take enlarge to the next event, and you can see that it selected the next event, so now it has two events selected. Returning to that menu, if I take the next option that says enlarge the range to the previous event, we really don't know what it did because it's not obvious here. So two things that are happening at this moment: the fact that we have to go up to these menus, come down to select every time, navigate to whatever we want in this list, and then click on it to actually perform it. The minute we actually do that, menu disappears on us. And if we're trying to figure out what this actually does, that's a lot of steps to have to go through and repeat to even see what the result is. The better way when you're learning how to understand these features, I personally have found, is to go ahead and just create a bunch of shortcuts, or rather key commands, for all of these so you can see them in action without having to reopen the menu, and you can just hit the different key commands. It becomes very obvious very quickly exactly what is going on here. As you can see in the menu now, if you look to the right, I have created a whole list of different key commands. To find these menu options, you can remember basically what the wording is. In this case, the first one says range to next event. If I go up to my edit, down to key commands, and I start typing that in, range, without having to go too far, all those options are now listed here. Range to the next event, range to the previous event, not necessarily in order, but they're all here in this long list, and they're pretty much under the category of edit. All right, let's talk about some things with using playback and transport. So one of the things you have to watch for on this transport bar is that some of your buttons may be hidden. As you move along and see various configurations, you may see these three little dots. There's one after these transport controls, basically one after every little section here. Right now on this transport control, I got 4 buttons for the cycle, for the stop, for the play, and the record. But if I grab where these 3 dots are and pull it to the right, it reveals that there's a few other buttons here. And you may not even know they're there if you don't expand this. So keep that in mind as you go along. So in this expanded view, we have the previous marker and the next marker, the rewind, and the forward. Now markers require markers. This rewind and forward, if I hit this rewind button, you look at the cursor, you'll see the cursor moves backwards. And if I hit this forward button, the cursor moves forward. These are pre-assigned over on your number keypad, the minus key, which I'm hitting now, and the plus key below it. You could change those. By default, that's how those work. You have this activate cycle. Look up here, you can see it's kind of this bluish purple color. If I hit that, turns that off. This is how you set up a loop point. The cycle button, you have the stop button, the play button, then when you're ready to record, the record button. Again, this one is typically assigned the asterisk button up in your number keys. If you hit that asterisk, you're going to start recording. If you hit it again, it's going to stop recording for any track that you have record enabled. And then you have this little note that stands for the primary time display. If you hit that, you can show things in bars and beats or seconds, time code samples, frames. These options are always available up on the ruler itself if you right-click, along with some other options. And again, we have an expansion button here. If you change these time formats, next to the little note, you see where the cursor is in whatever time display you have selected. If you change that time display, let's say to seconds, then that display will reflect that as well. You have the option to select a secondary time format. Say you want to keep this one at bars and beats, change this next one to seconds, then you can view both those displays at the same time. All right, let's talk about some options when you import audio and MIDI files into Cubase. Occasionally, you may try to bring a file into Cubase that's not supported. The files that are supported are things like your WAV, AIFF files, MPEG files, Windows Media if you're on a Windows, FLAC files, this OGG Vorbis file. But if something doesn't show up or you can't import it into Cubase, it could be some kind of incompatible audio file. You have other options on the file import. If you come down, you have one that says Audio CD. If These days, most of us may have trouble finding an audio CD to actually import, but if you have one, you can actually check off the individual tracks that you want and then hit OK, and it'll import all those tracks. You have another option down here where you can bring in just the audio from a video file. Click on this, navigate to where the video file is, and then it will import the audio as its own track. All right, so let's talk about importing MIDI. In order to import MIDI, you have to have MIDI files to import. So let's go searching for some. There's all kinds of places to find some. There's actually some included in Cubase, but let's go out to the internet and grab some. There's a site here called freemidi.org. Everything's free. I have a category here that says the top MIDI, so let's go to that. We have all kinds of great options here. Play one that we won't get into some kind of copyright issue with, but I'll go for Happy Birthday. Typically, this site gives you a little player where you can preview the song. If you want to go further, you can hit the button that says download the MIDI. Let's go ahead and do that. Pick a folder on your hard drive to download it to. And now we're back in Cubase. We're going to go to File, Import, and come down to MIDI file. The first thing it asks me is, do I want to create a new project? If I say no, it's going to try to import it into my existing project. But for simplicity, let's do a new project. At this point, it's asking you to actually click on the MIDI file that you downloaded. So we're going to go to Happy Birthday. And now it's asking us to create a folder because Cubase actually has to create a project. We'll go to New Folder and create a folder called Happy Birthday. Hit Select Folder. And then just like that, Cubase creates a project, opens up these MIDI files, and we have this. So there you go. You have a whole world of exploring importing MIDI files. All right, I hope you enjoyed all those various tips. And if you're looking to up your skill level in all the different areas of Cubase, be sure to click the link in the description of this video or stop by thedigitalaudiomanual.com for more information. As always, it's great to have you here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.